Ministries continued. Buses still went out picking up kids. Souls were saved, people baptized.
I became the church coordinator and helped organize the conferences and all the big days that we had. Anniversaries, it was the wedding coordinator, so all the weddings that took place, all the showers, baby and bridal.
I restarted the choir and got us going with that, and it was an amazing thing, an amazing time. The Lord really blessed us with some good singers in the church and some foundational people for each part.
Part of my responsibility back then was overseeing the building. It was not because I was a great building supervisor. It's not because I had a degree in engineering. There just wasn't a lot to choose from. And I know some of the young people that remember back in the day, we had signs in the mop closet. If you can't dump the mop bucket, don't fill the mop bucket.
Some of the staff and church families left to start new churches.
We've had the privilege of being a part of several churches, starting back with Pastor Short in the starting of the Anchor Baptist Church in Woburn. Tom Lamons, who served here as an assistant, teaching in our school, coaching, who went out to Missoula, Montana, and we had the privilege of assisting him. And then Don Noonan in, 1999, going out to Rochester, where he started the Rochester Baptist Church.
The years passed and it became very evident the church needed to move to a new location.
The south side of Milwaukee got really, really bad. We had bullet holes in some of our buses. Bev's Suburban had a bullet hole in it, I remember, from a drive-by shooting. There was a drive-by shooting when the kids were out at recess, just down the road. So it became very clear we needed to move.
Folks were just not willing to travel into the inner city there because of its reputation. And we realized if we were going to reach our whole community, we were not going to be able to do it from Wind Lake Avenue.
At the end, the building was in strong decay. It was a boiler system, and we just kept pillaging from one to try to keep the other one running. And eventually at the end, it didn't work. And it was really time for us to move on.
But we started to look at different properties and St. Stephen's by the airport, and they got struck by lightning. It was just crazy times there. There was one building in Cudahy. We were fasting every Thursday. We as a church fasted that the Lord might be giving us that building, and the Lord, it just seemed like it was just shut down time after time.
And I think it was God closing those doors because He had much more for us than I believed He would and could do for us.
There was then a committee, a building committee, and again, I was on that committee. And I remember at the meeting, and it was a group of men, and I can't remember who was there, how many, or who's still here, maybe a couple of us, maybe. But I even got emotional, I remember at the meeting. But I said that this decision we make, because again, a handful of people, we were an inner city ministry, we did not have a lot of money. We had a vision, we had a pastor with a vision, and we wanted to build.
We were trying to get a piece of property on Howell Avenue, just off of Howell and College. We were trying to get that rezoned because we wanted to buy it. It was 6 acres. And not a great piece of property, but the truth is it's what I had faith that God could do for us. And so we were trying to get it rezoned. Well, to make a long story short, we were, after about a year of going back and forth with the city, we had our zoning meeting, our final meeting where it was going to be voted on.
Pastor had already talked to the neighbors who would be our neighbors, and it was a unique piece of property. And we had the schematics all drawn out. We had a soccer field in the back. It'd be pretty tight. And Pastor had gone to the people. There was a row of houses, and they seemed to be on board. And then it went south really quick at that meeting. One guy was concerned because we have a school, And actually, it's right across from MATC on Howell there, the property. So MATC is over here. We were across on the, I think, the east side of the road. He was concerned an airplane could drop on us. One of the older women, or whatever they call themselves, she was concerned about deer would attack our children because they have sharp hooves. And we're looking at each other, just shaking our heads like, you have got, some of the most ridiculous issues were brought up. And again, as we look back, I don't know, I think it was God with a great sense of humor.
Actually, I laughed inside of my heart knowing that this was the Lord really shutting the door. Well, it was at that meeting after we had been voted down that a man came up to our architect and myself and said, I have a piece of property, I'll sell the church. And his name was Steve, and was very interested in being a help to the church. And so he told us about the property. We drove over here after that meeting and saw it, 18 acres of property, and thinking this piece of property worth several $1 million was way out of our budget. Well, he ended up selling it to us for the same price. I believe it was $280,000 that he sold us this property for. And that's what we were going to be paying for the other piece of property. And so God gave us this prime piece of property, and it was all part of his plan. And so he closed doors and opened doors to get us where he wanted us to be.
Excited about the future, the church broke ground on the new property. Quickly, the old farmhouse was removed and a basement dug.
We had our groundbreaking. It was October of 2005. And things began to move ahead, and the project, though, quickly went over budget. And our budget was real tight. And we were building what we could afford, and the project went well past the boundaries, and we had to shut the project down.
But we as a church, we're not a wealthy people. We're still not a uber wealthy people. The Lord's definitely blessed us, but back then it was a miracle. There's so many miracles along the way that we could talk about, but we'd had money, and then basically we're at a standstill. The bank said, we're not going to give you more money till you build. The builder said, we're not going to give you more, we're not going to build anymore till you give us more money. And so we sat stagnant for a while. We always tease about the world's largest swimming pool was our basement, that they had digged the basement and poured 3 out of the 4 walls. And so the money just dried up, the building dried up, and we had the world's largest swimming pool. I used to tease also that we could see the church's basement was full with water from Google Earth.
It was almost like we got the test first and then had to learn the lesson. Whereas in school, you're given instruction. You're going to need to know this for the test. And then you take a test. It was like we were given the test, and then we had to go back and find the answers. And
Stuck with no answer in sight, the people prayed, continued in the ministry, and gave.
For years, the people of Faith Baptist Church were giving and building a lasting legacy fund, and all of those things. And the people gave and gave and gave. And
okay, we're pretty much at a stalemate until something financially happens. So we thought maybe we'll just have to wait a couple of years, save up more money like we did before. We had different capital campaigns and building a lasting legacy. Some of you remember that from back in the day, and the giving tree that is now up in the fellowship corridor there. And so we thought maybe we're going to have to wait a couple of years and see what the Lord does. But the Sunday before Thanksgiving, I can't even remember which year it was, but the Sunday before Thanksgiving, the word was announced in church. Of course, it came in earlier that week, and I got to see it right after Pastor opened that letter and said, we're going to give you $500,000. Here's the first check, and we're going to send you the rest as the project goes along and as is needed. And so, of course, we were elated as a staff, and then for our church to hear that right before Thanksgiving, of all holidays, of all weekends, the Sunday before Thanksgiving, was an amazing time.
Well, I woke up one morning and we had been talking to different banks, and my alarm clock went off and the radio news came on. And the first thing I heard is that banks and savings and loans and credit unions were shutting down their loans. They were not going to be giving loans for some time because of the economy and everything that was going on. And I thought, oh boy, oh great, that right when we're waiting to hear for our approval, I hear this news. It was that later that day that I got a phone call from the Waterstone Bank and them committing to our project.
It was clear this was God's hand on Faith Baptist Church. The project moved forward, and soon the building was ready for its first Sunday.
Finally sit in the pews and see it all done, and the carpeting and the painting. My family, we didn't have Dave in those days, so my family and myself, I think we painted just about every inch of the building at the beginning. I think we did have a few helpers do a few rooms, but my kids and I painted the whole thing. So what a relief to finally sit and it's done. We were beyond thrilled.
I still can't believe we're here, to be real honest with you. It is a blessing. It is a blessing to have this ministry and this facility, and what God has done is truly amazing. And I'm so thankful to be a part. But the first service was just, you literally couldn't believe that we were here.